Good afternoon. This meeting of the Preservation Board is now in order. I'm going to call a roll to determine who was here first. Commissioner Richardson, are you here?
Here.
Commissioner Vines, are you here?
Here.
Carr, are you here? Okay. Commissioner Killeen, are you here?
Present.
And I am here. I note the presence of a quorum. Commissioners, take a look at the agenda and tell me if the agenda looks okay to you in terms of order and subjects on there. And let me know if anybody needs to recuse themselves from any item.
I have a recusal.
Okay, which one is it?
It is 2008 Crittenden,
Okay,
item E.
and we will look agenda
No, but I'm
item.
working for the
You're
guy.
11th Street too.
Oh, I've got another one?
No, Corey sent that.
Yes, 11, B and E, sir.
Okay,
Sorry.
good enough. Okay, Commissioners, if there are no further changes and nobody else needs to speak up, we will proceed with this agenda and consider it adopted. Calling first agenda item A, 1106 Dolman.
We're here for minutes?
We are, right down there at the end.
Oh.
For some reason, our last lawyer has to.
Yeah, read her.
See, told you.
From the Cultural Resources Office. We found out that we haven't been identifying ourselves properly, so here we are.
Just out of curiosity, what weren't you doing right?
We were not saying who we were every time, so it wasn't getting on the recording. Yeah, but anyway, this is what we do.
Okay.
I always do what I do.
Oh, but, I mean, you're not even under, if I put you under oath, you could not say that. Proceed.
This is a preliminary review application to construct a single-family house on this parcel on Dolman Street in the Lafayette Square Historic District. Now, what you're seeing there is the house on the left has a fairly substantial side yard. So please note that one secondary elevation of this property will be somewhat street visible. There's the site. You see the side yard on the north. And this is the proposal. This is an acceptable model example. The Cultural Resources Office certified that, and as you can see, it follows very closely the front elevation. The only caveat staff has is the fenestration on the north elevation, which is the top. Again, as I said, will be somewhat visible from the street. We'd like to see it brought to a more characteristically historic elevation. Now, on Dolman, we have been allowing more flexibility in fenestration on the rear half of exposed sides. So we're mostly concerned, I think, about the triple window that's shown there, and we'd rather see a double hung that's more traditional. Okay, this is the model example and two examples of its side elevation. One side has windows ranked in bays, and the other doesn't have any openings at all because it was at one point attached to another building. Okay, rear elevation and the streetscape. So pending the fenestration issue on the north elevation and the usual conditions of staff review of final plans and materials, we're recommending the board grant preliminary approval. Oh, some details, which are very nicely done, of the model example and the proposed entry on the right and the corner.
And do you remember revving the cornice?
Yeah. As I said on the, let me go back to it very quickly.
That street, gate,
Yeah.
streets.
The model example was once attached as a row house. So the cornice does not return to this elevation because it's a blank wall. They would like to do that since this will actually be an exposed wall. They would like to return it an appropriate distance such as is shown on the other side of the model example, and the staff is fine with that. And very quickly, because I know you're all familiar with it, this is the context along Dolman. And the opposite context. So there's no new construction in the vicinity. Questions?
Jen, Alderman Vaccaro asked me to ask you why you said fenestration instead of windows.
Yes, I was just curious why. Fancy? So if I called up a window company and said, new fenestrations, they're probably gonna say.
No, they wouldn't.
They would
Not
be
at
like,
all.
Questions on this side?
I have I have a letter of support with some conditions from the Lafayette Square Restoration Group.
Questions on this side? Thanks, Jen. We have the applicant and the neighbors here. Questions for them? Neighbors, testifying in favor? Suzanne?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Are you going to testify in favor?
Oh, yes.
Okay, then you're fine. We don't need you.
She has conditions.
I just have some. Okay, English. Yes, but it's generally in favor. Be sure we get the details in there.
Okay, commissioners, take a look at these conditions. Hold on just 1 second.
This will be fast.
Staff, have you, or the conditions that are in that letter, which of those are addressed and what is before us?
I don't think any of them are addressed, but the developer has agreed to them, so.
And so if we follow the recommendation in the report that says that they're going to have the final plans, details, and exterior materials reviewed and approved by you, then those items would be addressed at that point in time and included?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion?
I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval to the proposed new construction with the condition that the fenestration of the north elevation be revised to more closely follow the historic model example. The final plans, details, and exterior materials are reviewed and approved by the Cultural Resources Office, including items 1 through 4 in the letter dated September 22nd, 2019 from the Lafayette Square Restoration Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Vines. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Commissioners minus Commissioner Killeen. Let's go to agenda item B, 2216 South 11th Street.
Jan Cameron again, from the Cultural Resources Office. This is 2216 South 11th Street, which is located in the Soulard Historic District. And the site. Now, what you're going to see this evening is, or this afternoon, is different from the drawings that were forwarded to you in your email. And the reason for that is that I just got these very late on Friday. They've chosen a new model example from what you may have seen before, which is 3312 Missouri. But the essential scale and footprint of the building remains the same. What has been changed is a very large dormer that was on the initial drawings that has been rescaled back to a more appropriate historic dormer. So, given that, I'll just say that it's on a very narrow lot. The building is extremely long, but because it has two-story buildings to either side, I don't think that will be perceivable from the street. The rear of the property is covered by a gambrel roof. Again, not particularly historic, but I don't think anyone will see it. Okay, so very quickly, this is the context on the north. Here is the site. And those are the two buildings to either side. So you can see how it will be screened. And further to the south, and then the opposite streetscape. So, given the changes that we are presenting this evening, the staff is recommending that the board grant preliminary approval with the usual conditions, that the staff reviews final drawings and exterior materials.
Questions on this side? Questions on this side?
I have one. So I guess, so what was in the packet, the historic model example was a side entry one, and now the historic model example is a front entry, but we're still doing a side, but you're okay with that?
Yeah.
And it still meets that ratio of solid to void?
It meets all the requirements.
Okay, cool.
Commissioners, the architect is present. Can we hear from the architect? Okay. Commissioner Vines, have you got a motion?
I move that the Preservation Board grant preliminary approval to approve this project revised per the slideshow.
Barbara, is that okay with you? Is that okay with you as a motion?
Do I need to clarify the
Do you want
details?
the final design
Yeah.
details and exterior?
Yes, yeah, final design details and exterior materials be approved by Cultural Resources for compliance with the Historic District standards.
Also seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioners. We're going to do agenda item C, 4211 to 13 Cleveland.
Bethany Moore of the Cultural Resources Office. This is 4211 to 13 Cleveland Avenue. It's a preliminary review application to retain a front retaining wall that was built without a permit. And here's a picture of the retaining wall right here. It was built to match the neighbors over here, which was also built without a permit. Here's its location on Cleveland. Again, here are some more pictures of it. It's right here. This is the portion of the neighbors that it meets up with. This is directly adjacent to 4211 to 13 Cleveland. As you can see, there are no retaining walls down to Clem. This is directly across the street looking west down Cleveland. There is one right here. Again, that's the streetscape directly opposite Cleveland. And then directly opposite looking towards Clem again. And the standards state that yard dividers, walls, enclosures, or fences in front of the building line are not permitted. So you can see that this does not comply with the standards. So the Cultural Resources Office recommends that the Preservation Board withhold preliminary approval of the application as it does not comply with the Shaw Neighborhood Local Historic District standards.
Community consultation, aldermanic input. Questions on this?
No.
Said no. Questions on this side? Questions on this side?
I'll just wait to hear from.
Thank you. Right now. You ready?
Never done this before.
Perfect. Come on up.
Here?
Right there
Thank you,
is
sir.
just fine.
All right.
Hello, what is your name?
Hi, I'm Amira Javed, and I'm the owner of this property.
And what is your address?
4211, 4213 Cleveland Avenue.
Okay, tell us what you want us to do.
So if you could help me walk through this PowerPoint, thank you. So fortunately, my husband couldn't be here because he's over in Germany and I just came from work. We're investors. We have properties in the Shaw District, Tiffany, and Afton. So we've invested in a couple different properties. We've rehabbed multiple properties. This current property we bought last September. We've done an enormous amount of work. We've gotten new water lines, new sewer lines, and due to all of that, we've had to redo all of the landscaping. Because of that, it was a remiss on our part to see whether or not we needed to get a permit just for the landscaping. You can look at to see whether or not we've gotten permits for everything else, water, sewage. We've had to do a cement pour because we rehabbed the building and we wanted to get a laundry facility put in. So we've taken this 4-family unit, which was originally bank owned, so that we could invest in this area, and hopefully we're wanting to put it on the market in the next about 2 months. The only holdup is getting this permit and hopefully an occupancy permit to put on the market. So as you can see here, we have a couple of our properties listed that we've invested in. We've done a couple flips. We have a couple of rentals, 26 doors to be exact. So we do everything with permits. This was the one thing that was a slip. I'm 28 weeks pregnant, so I couldn't actually look at my subcontractor when he was going in to put in our landscape, or the retaining wall. So our other current project that we're working on in the Tiffany neighborhood, we have 6 of the 8 units currently rented to young professionals. We're currently rehabbing that as well. Everything has gone through permit. So if you could work. Next slide, please. So the current situation on 4211, 4213 Cleveland is that, as I mentioned, it was a bank-owned property. We took it, we rehabbed it. Because we had to put in new sewer lines and new water lines, now the water lines are up to par. They're 3/4 inch, so they are up to city code. We also had to attach it to a sewer lateral. That was all through the winter time, and so everything was muddy. The neighbors at 4215 Cleveland actually came in over and complained to us saying, hey, our kids are going out, they're getting a lot of mud. When are you actually going to get this property up and running? We're not happy with this project. So now that we're able to get the landscaping put in, the landscaper unfortunately did not get the permit done. We didn't think we needed a permit for this particular project because while driving through the Shaw District, there are many properties which have a retaining wall that's lower than 18 inches. So we just continued our neighbor's retaining wall. We talked to other real estate agents. We also talked to our neighbors and said, hey, do you mind if we just continue the retaining wall? So we used the same cement bricks as our neighbors and continued that retaining wall as per told to our landscaper that we hired. Next page, please. So as you saw the pictures that Bethany showed, we've continued our neighbor's retaining wall to our retaining wall. We didn't use we didn't use different brick, we didn't use stone, so on and so forth. Just so it looks the same, you know, you're not seeing different colors, same beautification, same concept. We've changed the outside of the look of our building. We've updated brand new porches. We've made it from a 4-family to a 2-family. We haven't made any other changes to the outside with, you know, we didn't do any tuck pointing or anything like that, but we've just changed it in the sense that made it more appealing, hopefully, to new buyers. Next slide, please. So one thing I want to point out that at the intersection of Clem and Flad, there is a retaining wall, and I'm not trying to open up Pandora's box, but there are many homes in the Shaw District which do have retaining walls. So with that, next slide. The back of 4200 block on Cleveland also has retaining walls. So doing some research for this presentation and for hopefully getting our property on the market, we saw that there have been many homes that were sold in the last 4 years that were not, did not get a permit for a retaining wall. So as people are moving into the St. Louis area, this might be an appeal for them. As we talk to our neighbors as to, hey, when did you actually get your retaining wall put in? And they just did it without a permit. So we saw that these 4 properties listed also were sold without a retaining wall. So next slide. And these are the pictures that were taken either off of Zillow or Google Images. As you can see, they are either stone, red brick, or cement brick that we have used as well. Next slide. And this is the cement brick that we are using. So lastly, the ask is if we would like to be approved to keep this particular retaining wall. If you ask us to remove it, we will work on coordinating it, as our main goal is essentially to have the occupancy inspection so that we can get it on market. But lastly, our wall is within city compliance, is less than the 18 inches. We understand this is a historic district. We've done everything else within compliance. It complements the neighbor's retaining wall. It is a safety feature. The neighbors have young kids. We hope that if 2 families buy this particular building, they will help them. I've talked to a couple of my friends who I work with. They're either current renters for 2 years and they hope to buy within the Shaw District. Talking to particular landscapers who cut grass in the area. Usually the Shaw District wants a particular slope. Sometimes that is difficult if you're cutting grass. So having that retaining wall levels out the ground. I've looked up issues within flooding in the area. So if there's Tower Grove hasn't flooded in many years, but if there's ever flooding in that area, having a retaining wall helps. So there's a couple different factors that will benefit having a retaining wall. So lastly, I appreciate you taking the time to hear my appeal today. If you have any questions, please let me know. More than happy to answer that.
Commissioners on this side, questions? Commissioner Vines? Commissioner Richardson? Commissioners on this side, questions?
Just more of a comment.
In the form of a question?
The form of a question is, well, then, if all the neighbors have that, and I understand the rules, but I don't see why we would deny this one when other people have it.
Well, let's ask the pertinent question then. In your extensive research, have you found a retaining wall constructed with a permit?
No, and I did try to look in the last 4 years using the research that using the references I was allowed to use, which ones did have a permit. And so with the public knowledge that is I was not able to find one.
Okay, thank you. Answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And have you approached anyone in the neighborhood or the alderman to discuss this issue?
So we did have a conversation with Annie Rice on Friday, and she said due to the current bylaws, she would not be able to support this project because she has to currently support what is the rules and regulations. So that's why she's not here today, because I was asking for her support. And so that's why in regards to the neighborhood, she said, if there's anyone in the neighborhood that does have a retaining wall, they must have gotten it. I can't go back and say, hey, you need a permit, so on and so forth. If it's been built, it's been built. If you want one, please make your case. And that's kind of where her answer was. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Killeen, have you got a motion?
No, sir, I don't.
Alderman?
Well, I'll be honest with you, mine would be to approve it. So if you want someone else to make a motion, if I make a motion, I'll make a motion that the Preservation Board deny
Overturn the staff denial.
yeah, that they overturn the denial.
So
And
you're...
that they approve the retaining wall. So that would be my motion, that the Preservation Board.
So let's do it in a complete sentence.
Yeah, I'll try to hold one this time. That the
Okay,
Preservation.
your motion is the Preservation Board approve the retaining wall that does not comply with the Shaw Neighborhood Local Historic District Standards?
Yes, that would be my motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Discussion, Alderman?
If nobody else did, and I would hope in the future, this goes against what I believe. I always believe you should support the alderman, but in this case, taking that retaining wall out, if you ask me, would, take away from the scape of that whole area, including the neighbor's house. It would look kind of strange.
Well, I think these citizens got together and put together an historic district and had an ordinance passed, and this is one of the rules that they wrote down and thought about. So for us to just ignore it, I think is irresponsible.
Well, the problem I have is that last month, and I just went back and looked at, we approved 4001 Botanical to put a retaining wall in, which was a taller retaining wall. So, and I believe the alderwoman was here and supported that one. So I'm kind of getting mixed signals here.
Oh, is that the same district?
Yeah.
It was a wooden one.
Yes. I know it's highly unusual for staff to request to comment during deliberations, but
It's not that unusual.
in my tenure, it has been. I don't know what those other people did. Okay.
Please. And Commissioner Vines, I have not forgotten you.
Oh, it's okay.
Dan Krasnoff, Cultural Resources Director. I just want to get up and clarify for the board. The retaining wall, it was highly unusual, I would say, that a retaining wall be approved in a district where they're not allowed. The distinction between this retaining wall and the retaining wall last week, or last month rather, was the retaining wall that was in question last month was built before the district was ever in place. So essentially the owners inherited a retaining wall they had no role in producing, and the board's decision was to allow them to rebuild the retaining wall because it had deteriorated to the point where it couldn't be preserved anymore. So that retaining wall was not a retaining wall created against the standards. There were no standards when that retaining wall was created. So that left the homeowner in the position of having a retaining wall that you know, they would have had to go back and reconstruct the yard as per before the district. And I think that was the distinction because, as the board members know, we've had many, many retaining walls come before the board, and I don't think any of them in the past were approved. It was highly unusual to have one that we could basically show was built before the district was in place. So the decision is the board's to make, but I do want to clarify the distinction between that retaining wall and the reason for the staff recommendation today.
Thank you.
So can I just rephrase? So are you saying that, so that was like a I'm putting in zoning terms, that was a non-conforming use, a pre-existing wall that then became non-conforming when the historic district ordinance was put in place. And so we're just, then that one, we are just allowing him to replace the existing non-conforming wall.
Correct.
Okay. As opposed to here, I have an applicant who made, it's not a non-conforming pre-existing use, it's a new violation that they created themselves.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, this is one of those dilemmas of mine where aesthetically, I think it looks fine as proposed. I don't see any issue with it there, but there again, the ordinance is the ordinance, and it's an historic district, and people work long and hard to draw up these the language set forth, and that's ultimately that's the letter of the law. But you know, if there were, I always feel bad for appellants in this scenario because
Not appellants yet.
or not appellants, well, the applicants. You know, an investment has been made to improve the property. In my opinion, it looks nice. Unfortunately, it does not comply. So, I don't know. I had no real point to what I said. I'm just like venting or airing.
Okay, Commissioners, there's a motion on the floor. It is to grant preliminary approval to the retaining wall that does not comply with the Shaw Neighborhood Local Historic District standards. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. I'm probably the only one, but aye. If you're gonna do roll call,
Are you still talking? It's an aye?
an aye unless you wanna do roll call.
Aye. And nays?
Nay.
Nays have it. Alderman, would you like to make another motion?
No, I made one. I'm happy with the one I made, so I'm not gonna change it.
Commissioner Killeen, like to make a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that the Preservation Board withhold preliminary approval as the retaining wall does not comply with the Shaw Neighborhood Local Historic District standards.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm still.
sorry. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me, I'm opposed.
Opposed, one opposed.
Got it. The ayes have it. The motion is approved. Okay, Commissioners, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, Commissioners, we are going to reconvene. This time, we will be hearing appeals of denials. And I'm going to ask both staff and applicants to identify themselves clearly, to give their addresses, and to swear that the testimony they're going to give is the truth so that we can build a record. First up, 2227 Jules.
I'm Andrea Gagan with the Cultural Resources Office, and I swear to tell the truth.
Proceed.
I need to enter into the record ordinance 64689 as amended by 64925, which is enabling ordinance, and the McKinley Heights Neighborhood Historic District Ordinance 67901. As well as a letter from the McKinley Heights Neighborhood Association in support of the director's denial. This, and also the PowerPoint and the agenda item. Okay, this is 2227 Jules Street. This is just the front. This is a site plan, South Ann Avenue. This is a view of both the front and the north elevations. And this is basically, what happened is that the building originally, well, not originally, but previously did have vinyl windows installed in it. The applicants had windows installed, new vinyl windows installed, and it was done without a permit. This is kind of a comparison showing what the difference between one that's a vinyl window and wrapped, the trim, the brick mold, and the eyebrow, to a historic window, an appropriate placement. As you can see, it's a lot flatter. There's not the detail you can't see the detail of the brick mold or the eyebrow, and the lift rail and metering rails are not the same. And yes, and the window's smaller also because it's inserted within the existing frame. This is just another view of the windows. They applied for, I believe, 14. There's only 11 that really are in question here, the ones on the sides and front. This is just some context on either side. Unfortunately, the applicants dealt with Universal Direct Windows, who have been totally unresponsive to them and to me. They're the ones that did. They tried to say that they checked and they didn't need a permit, but the link that they had sent proved that they did know. Unfortunately, the falls on the homeowner. And that's kind of what the McKinley Heights Neighborhood Association said. They empathize with the homeowners, but as we've required other people to change their vinyl windows when they've been installed illegally, they are supporting our the director's denial. Let's see. The windows were installed with a permit, or without a permit. They're vinyl, which is not an appropriate material under the McKinley Heights Historic District Ordinance. They're not based on a model example, which is called for when the original windows are not in the building. And the insulated glass is not set back 3/8 of an inch from the exterior of the sash, which creates a flattened look. The covering of the brick mold and the eyebrows with aluminum paneling is not allowed under the historic district standards either. Based on the preliminary findings, the Resource Office recommends the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial of the application as it does not comply with the McKinley Heights Historic District Ordinance.
Alderman Vaccaro, you're sort of our expert on fenestration. Do you have any questions?
I do. Only based off of the retaining wall. And I'm new at this, but, so we allowed a retaining wall that was there and said, well, it was existing. Now, we're told that the vinyl windows were there and they replaced them with vinyl windows. Tell me the difference. Because if we allowed somebody to have an improper retaining wall that was put in prior to whatever, and we said, well, it was there, so we fix it. Isn't this the same thing? They had vinyl windows there and they replaced them with vinyl
Not
windows?
exactly the same thing, with the retaining wall, they would have had to regrade their entire yard to change it. If you're put windows, there's not any difference between like installing. I mean, there's not really any change.
But there were vinyl windows before,
That was
and they replaced them with vinyl windows.
right, but there's not a huge change that you have to do to put new windows in.
No, but these are,
That you would, like for the retaining wall. The retaining wall would have required a great deal of extra money to, I mean.
didn't take these windows out and put in the other windows.
I notice another speaker.
Dan Krasnoff, swear to tell the truth. I guess I agree with everything Andy said, and I think it's an appropriate answer. But I think there's some additional answer that I would also give, and why these aren't apples to apples comparisons. I think there's a hierarchy to the importance of architectural elements on a building and on a site. Frankly, I think what we're seeing in these two examples of the Shaw retaining wall from last week and this is an illustration of that. So one of the really key elements to any building, historic building, are the windows. So we are quite strict about when folks go to replace such a key element that they need to comply with the standards. And we enforce that almost universally. I would say with the site that in this particular case, or in general, site elements are less important in that hierarchy to the building, and therefore we're exercising what we think is the right judgment, and it's up to the board to decide if you agree with us or not, but that windows need to be replaced. Elements like windows, cornices, materials on the building itself have a heightened importance over site arrangements. And in the case of the retaining wall, we felt, frankly, that that understanding the amount of effort that would be required to change the yard back versus the benefit to the district aesthetically was not worth making them do that. But for windows, which are such a key element, that should be changed. And I would say that that's the difference in those two distinctions. And again, it's up to the board to decide if you agree with our distinction, but that's what our thinking is.
I doubt that the window company, that they felt that they went through and approved went through what they felt was proper, they would have to basically sue them. I mean, a change of windows is not going to be cheap.
I mean,
No.
And anyway, so that's okay. I can't support the denial on this one either. Oh, sorry.
Well, and
I
the
can't.
has some information on how much it would cost versus.
Yeah, so I'll sit back and listen, but that was my whole thing. I just,
Mr. Robinson?
No.
Commissioners on this side?
I'm just not reading this letter, but no. One, I do want to make one. I don't know if it's been mentioned in the agenda. There are some errant citations of the Central West End Historic District on this agenda item. I'm sure it was just a oversight, but on page 23.
Yeah, it's actually the text is from.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Okay,
Just that-
it confused me.
Just a typo at the top.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, for the record, because we're building one, would you tell us what it should say, please?
Yes, it should say ordinance 67901, McKinley Heights Historic District Ordinance.
Or does that satisfy you?
Yeah, so you made that edit to page 23, and that's the ordinance that you entered into the record at the.
Yes, and the underneath that typo, that is the McKinley Heights. The excerpt is actually the. Right.
So the text that follows the
Right,
typograph
is correct,
layer
yes.
is correct.
Thank you. Okay, the appellants are present. Come on up. Unless you're going to testify against each other, I'll let you both testify at the same time.
Sure.
Tell us who you are, please.
I'm Sean Brody.
I'm Jacqueline Carr.
And will both of you swear to tell the truth? Will each of you swear to tell the truth? Okay. What would you like us to do?
Yeah, so Andrea kind of summed it up pretty well. Yeah, this is our first home. We bought the home in 2015. It was a rehabbed home. The rehab was questionable in some places. The windows were obviously one of them. The windows that were previously there were, as she mentioned, vinyl windows, but I still don't believe that they met the ordinance standards because they were not glass. Some of them weren't glass. Some of them were recessed like the ones that were installed. And again, we're just, I guess, chalking it up to ignorance. Being first-time homeowners, we replaced vinyl windows with vinyl windows. The company that we've dealt with, after we received the first letter from the city, back in July, I contacted the company, and the vice president responded to me in an email stating that they checked the city website and determined that they did not need a permit. So this is kind of now fallen on us, I suppose. We're just not really sure what to do at this point, but we're terrified that we just spent 5 figures on windows, and now we're going to have to spend 5 figures on windows 3 months later after they were installed. So,
Is it your testimony that that would be a financial hardship?
we are not currently in a position to replace all 11 of those windows, no.
Like to add?
I guess we would, the other thing with, they installed aluminum caps on the windows. We didn't know that they were going to do that. We didn't find out that they did that until they did the final walkthrough with us after the job was completed. Personally, we don't like the aluminum caps. There was nothing wrong with the stone that was underneath, or they put the aluminum over. So I don't know if I guess what we're possibly hoping is maybe to have the front windows replaced, have the aluminum caps removed on the side of the home to try and kind of get it back more towards what the ordinance requires.
Anything else you'd like to add for your case?
I don't. No, I don't believe so.
Okay, commissioners on this side? Questions?
No, I mean, did you bring to the attention of the whoever said that you don't need a permit? The company was, I mean, were they informed
Yes,
that that's not true?
Yeah, so he actually provided a link to the website that they checked, and it was a direct link to the ordinance and the requirements. Yes.
Sounds like they could foot the bill for you for whatever
We've
undoing is necessary, but
yeah. We've attempted to contact them multiple times, but we are paid in full, so we don't anticipate that we will ever hear from them again.
Yikes. Well, okay, thanks.
Sure.
No. Commissioner Robinson? Put in a lot of windows. Commissioner Killeen?
Oftentimes when people say they have a financial hardship, they'll bring in proof of that, which might include tax records or payment history, just like bank account information.
Okay.
So that could help bolster that argument before this board. And sometimes when people hear that, they request a delay to get that together until next month.
Okay, sure.
Don't they?
They do.
Okay, it'd have to
Alderman?
be a question.
It sounds to me like it'd be better to get a delay and then, that's just.
Anything you'd like to add?
I don't believe so. We're just not really sure what to do at this point.
So, Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, did you ask,
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I said no. We're just not sure what to do from here.
did you ask us to delay this?
Yes.
Well, let's take it under advisement for a second. Commissioners, what does that mean? Staff, can we do that? Can we?
Sure, you can table this to a future meeting. Or you can render some kind of.
Is there a clock?
Yeah, do they have to waive something?
I don't believe, I don't believe there's a time constraint they need to waive in the case of this alteration of windows. Am I overlooking anything, staff?
No, I think there are provisions in the ordinance that allow the board to take more time if they feel it needs it to gather more information.
Mm-hmm. If this were the case of a demolition, there might be different times that would kick in, but I don't believe that in the case of these windows. So in the appellant's request, I believe it can be continued to leave the record open, to revisit it if they're asking for that, to bring in their proof of economic hardship.
Commissioners, is it your consensus that we delay this or that we take this up today?
Can I move that we delay this until a
next
later date, until, to be determined by the CRO?
That would be a motion from you, Mr. Richardson.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. We're not going to take this matter up today. We'll take it up again when you and the staff have reached a resolution about when we should take it up again.
Okay.
Good luck.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, Commissioners. Commissioner Killeen is recusing himself from consideration of this matter. We're going to call agenda item E, 2008 Crittenden.
Oh, thanks.
I'm Andrea Gagan with Cultural Resources Office, and I still swear to tell the truth. I need to enter into the record the enabling ordinance 64689 and as amended by 64925, and the Benton Park Historic District Ordinance 67175, and the PowerPoint and agenda item.
Thank you.
All right. This is 2008 Crittenden Street. This is a site plan. The applicant originally had applied to construct a deck at the rear of the building right here and a carport or garage port at this location. This is kind of showing the house here and the deck and then new garage port. It came to our attention while we were looking at the plans that the garage port, as well as the horizontal fencing that was on the permit application, had been constructed without a permit. As you can see, fencing is at least 8 feet tall and is constructed of horizontal boards. The height and material, neither one comply with the historic district standards. Also, we had, before we knew it was constructed, we had asked for a wall at the side so that it looked more like a gable roof, so that it looked more like a garage because it is so visible from the street. The roof, this type of slip roof is not, does not meet the historic district standards under garage and carports. We also found out that there had been some additional work done on the property without a permit. This wall had been painted blue, as well as there had been some work done to underneath the porch, and the foundation had also been painted. Now, the foundation front was also painted, but it had been previously painted. This is a picture of the wall from Google before the painting was done. It does appear that the foundation was previously painted. Obviously, some of this wall had been painted previously, and they had tried to remove paint, although it wasn't totally successful. And this area up here had been parged previously. But the whole entire thing was painted blue. And it is not allowed under the historic district standards to paint unpainted masonry or unpainted foundations.
So would you just go back over your testimony? Some of it was painted before?
Well, this, here you can see, this section at some point had been painted. And they tried to remove the paint, which wasn't totally successful. So they probably would have been allowed to paint this back to a, color to match the rest of the wall. But instead, they painted the entire wall, much of which had not been painted previously, which is not allowed.
Is the painting part of this permit?
And it was done without a permit. This is just a close-up of the painted foundation. It's rather shiny. This is also, when we were out there taking pictures, noticed that the front walk had been replaced, as well as this sort of low fence that was constructed in front of the building line, neither which had permits. This is just some context across Crittenden and some of the buildings to the east of 2008 Crittenden. When we realized that, because we had asked for changes before we realized that the pit had already been constructed, and so then when we found out that it was had been constructed, the application was denied, and the
Okay, so let's get this sorted. There's a garage port. There's a fence issue, and there's a paint issue. 3 different issues.
Yes.
Commissioners, questions on this side?
All of it without a permit.
Yes.
Would the paint have needed a permit?
Yes. The paint. Now they could have painted the previously painted part without a permit, but the part that had not been previously painted, we would have required a permit and it's not allowed under the historic district standard.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Questions on this side? Thank you. Whoops.
Yes.
Sorry.
So, section 201. What does section 201 state about garage and carport roofs?
It says basically you can have a gable, a mansard, a sloped roof, but it has to be a sloped roof like as in a flat roof. It has to be sloped to one side, but not back to front. While we're a little lenient about that when it's not visible from the street, this is, because basically this is highly visible from the street because there's nothing here in front of that.
I do have a question.
I have one also, but yours first.
Well, no, I mean, but
For it to be flat.
by the picture, it looks like it is sloped to the side. It looks higher it looks like it's sloped to the side because the front, where the doors it's that way.
Yeah, it's actually sloped, the back of it is higher than the front. It's not sloped to one side or the other.
Looked like it.
It's just, I think it's just the way, the angle of the picture.
So is rebuilding the foundation a fourth permit?
Well, yes, technically didn't get a permit for that either. I mean, they did it, okay, I mean, I think they did an okay job on that, so it was not something we're like.
So
concerned about.
if they now applied for a permit to rebuild the foundation, you would approve that? Okay. Okay, let's hear from the appellants.
Oh, here, let me get there.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time today. I own 2008 Crittenden, what you're seeing
Let's
up.
start from the beginning. What is your name
Oh, my name is Doug Nguyen.
and your address?
2008 Crittenden.
Is your testimony going to be the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I have a couple items that I want to talk about, which is what Andrea brought up. The front porch, as you can see in there, Andrea brought to my attention that what we did originally on the left was incorrect. We used siding, and she told me that was not, we couldn't do that. So she explained to me, and we recently just changed it. So on the right, you can see that we made the change to meet their requirements, to make it more historical. So what you see on the left and what you see on the right is what has been changed to. So that one has been recently fixed because that's what they liked. The painted wall, if you want to bring up the garage right now, this garage is actually a garage just like a block away. The first thing I want to mention is that my garage is actually 60 feet away from the street. On top of that, it's not a corner lot. It's actually there's an alley. So it's my house is actually on the side of a street, and there's an alley that runs down, similar to what you see right here. This is about a block and a half away. This was built less than 2 years ago. And I have dozens of pictures of other very similar garages that were slope garages that were built just recently. If you can flip to the, there should be another picture of some other garages.
I mean, they might be further on.
Yeah, this garage right here, this is actually right there on Wisconsin. It's not far from my home also. These are actually original garages that were built back pretty long ago. And these are regular garages they're not gable garages, they're kind of slope, flat roof garages. If you can flip to the next one. This is another garage, which is actually right there on Lemp, again, not far away. And there's probably half a dozen more garages very similar. But this is actually a garage that's right up in the street. So like you can see the public sidewalk, and there's the garage. So again, my garage is that I built was it's 60 feet away from the street of Crittenden, and on top of that, it's not on the corner. It's not a corner lot house. It's a side street. So I just wanted to show those other examples of other garages in Benton Park. So I kind of did something that I already saw that was happening in the neighborhood already.
Just to clarify your testimony, is it your testimony that those are garages for which people asked for permits, were granted permits, and built them?
Those were built. I don't know if they did ask for permit or didn't ask for permit. I do want to mention that I know there's this idea that there was not a permit on this project. I want to be very clear that there is a permit on this project. So I rehabbed this home. This is when I purchased this home. This was about 3 years ago. It was dilapidated. The city had condemned the house. I was in the process of developing other homes in the time being. So I started on this house, but I let the house. So I put a permit on this project for the inside of the house. My architect at the time had done the drawings, and we submitted it. I've always had permit inside the house on the window. What happened was back then, 3 years went by, and by the time I came back to this project, which was about 7 months ago, things kind of fell through the cracks. I didn't realize that we didn't pull the permit on the garage. I spent I spent a lot of money on this building, and obviously I'm not going to jeopardize this project and build I pull a permit on everything else. I wouldn't jeopardize my project on just trying to sneak in a garage. On top of that, when I found out that I didn't have a permit, it wasn't the city that told me. I found out that I didn't have drawings for the garage. So I'm the one who initiated to get drawings for the garage. It's not like the city came to me and said, "Oh, you didn't have permit on this stuff." So I'm the one who initiated. So it wasn't something I was trying to sneak. It just kind of happened after 3 years, working on other projects, coming back to it. It just fell through the cracks. We thought we had a permit on it, and when I realized it, I tried to get the permit on it. And then again, I just followed, carports that were around the neighborhood. So that hopefully that answers why there wasn't a permit on the garage. And then just mentioning the fence, if you can go back to the one with the fence that's kind of, that one right there. So the fence that I built, again, it's very similar to this one. And again, there's dozens of garages like this in the neighborhood. And again, sir, I don't know if they were done with permit or without, but there's a lot of them that have a very similar wall. My garage is actually not a garage, it's a carport. So I built a carport, and I just put a wall to, obviously give it security. So I did this very similar thing. I guess the last thing I want to mention about, permits, a lot of times, I'm sure you guys may or may not agree, but a lot of times when people don't pull permits because they're trying to sneak in or do things, at a lower grade of construction, that is not the case for me. The quality of my garage, my carport that I built there is above and beyond. I use, very high-end material, just like you see my fence. Those are $28 a square, a board. So I didn't try to sneak in a garage and do something. It was just a mistake on my part on this project. It's not something that has happened before, and even you guys have never seen me here before. It's never happened before for me. It's just happened for this project here. Let's see. Oh, regarding the painted wall. So I do projects in Tower Grove and Soulard and Central West End, and I have a book of the standards printed in my office. And when we looked at the standard says that, you can paint a wall that's been painted. On that right there, actually, I am not a person who believes in painting walls because it's not good for a home, and also it costs more. So if you can fix the wall and make it better in the long run, it's better all around for the house and also for for the project from a cost standpoint. What you see on the right is actually after my guys actually have gone up there and pretty much cleaned that wall. We try to clean it and take it back to its original. And what you see right there on the left side, and majority of you can see where it's parched up on top, and then a lot of it on the left side has all been painted. The picture on the left is a close-up of the actual painted, what we couldn't take off. So looking at the standards at the time and going through Benton Park and seeing a lot of homes like on Arsenal, on Missouri, there's plenty of homes where the front of the house has been painted. This again is on the side, it's facing an alley, not a corner lot. So we end up, because of the way it looked, we decided to paint it. Because it was already painted. It was not painted. So in the standards, it doesn't say if you have a partial wall, then you can only paint the partial part of that wall. It doesn't state that. And if it does, my apologies, I didn't see that. But when I read the standards, it said a painted wall you can repaint. So we painted the wall for that reason. Also, what I like to say is if we can move to the other parts.
By the way, I'm glad you made that last point because I could hear Commissioner Richardson making it in his head anyway.
I'm sorry? If you face my house on Crittenden, what I plan to do is a lot. And on that lot is I've been working with the city, and I've had a surveyor come out, and they've surveyed it, and as of last Wednesday, they approved for me to build another house next door. Colleen Architects is obviously, they've come up with these drawings. I would have already broken ground on this, but things kind of fell through with, the cracks with the city and myself and trying to get the hearing. But last Wednesday, they approved it. And this is actually the house that we're going to be building right next to my house. So the house on the right is something that I'm planning to break ground this as soon as possible once we get everything, all the drawings permitted. As you can see, this house that I'm about to build will pretty much resolve all the situation with the wall, with the garage, and you won't see any of those things. So again, that's another thing, because this project for me over here has always been for me to build another building next door. So when we were in the process of everything, we painted it. But like I'm trying to say, that this house is going to be built, and it's gonna resolve all the issues with not seeing that garage, and also not seeing that wall that I painted. So it's all going to be gone. I think that's pretty much the one thing that I just please understand again is that whenever I do a project, I try to follow the standards in the neighborhood. And in this situation, with the new project, with the new building, the new house that we're building next door, some of the issues like this garage, again, is 60 feet back compared to the other ones that are right next to the street. I didn't really pay a lot of attention because I was already in the plan of building this house. So I didn't think painting this wall was going to be a big issue, even though I didn't think it was wrong because, it was already painted. So that's pretty much all I have to say. And yeah.
Commissioners on this side, questions?
No.
Commissioners on this side, questions? Did I turn too quickly, Commissioner? Go ahead. Thank you very much.
My name is Mike Killeen. I live at 3015 Salina Street, and I promise to tell the truth.
Proceed.
So, Andy, if we could go back, please, to the UIC, the project on Indiana, from our presentation. Thank you. While she's doing that, just to be clear, I'm not the architect for 2008 Crittenden. My client hired a different architect for that. But I am the architect for this new building. So I think that's the biggest point I wanted to make in standing up here, is that he's sincere. He's entered into a contract with us. We're designing a new home. We just had a big design meeting there today. So, and as a suggestion, if any of these issues can't be resolved here today, perhaps there could be some kind of a conditional motion where if ground isn't broken by such and such a date, he has to remedy whatever's left over. It's just a thought, because he does fully intend to build a house there. However, before we get into that, I wanted to just address Richard's point about, was anything, you able to find that? Okay, so could I maybe get this? Thank you. You had asked if any of the carport examples, Richard, had been previously approved for permit, and the one at 2860 Indiana came before this board and went before staff. That was a building developed by UIC, and that is the one that had the very similar look, the fence rails, and I'd be happy to give this to Adana if you'd like.
Great, thank you.
So I think perhaps the difference between this project and UIC's project was that UIC went through proper channels and got a permit and didn't have to ask for forgiveness. My client is asking for that. As I think he proved he is, reputable and meant to get a permit for this. It just fell through the cracks. However, it is a very similar building and very similar set of circumstances where it can be seen from the street. It's not exactly on a corner, but you can see it from the street. So, I think staff has referred to the fence that you see as a fence, but it could also be seen as just the wall for that carport, which is exactly what UIC was approved to do by this board. So that was one point, and there was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Front porch he took care of. UIC permission. Oh, Ms. Gagan mentioned that shed roofs are not allowed in this historic district in garages. I don't know if those are your exact words. I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
It doesn't, it's not one of the listed things for that.
Yeah, I was on the committee that helped write those things. I'm sorry that they're so confusing. We're going to update them one of these days.
Slip to one side, so I would just.
Right. And I think it says find a model example. And so that was the one slide that was rather blurry there that showed there are shed roofs in the district's older garages. I haven't dated them to see if they're in that time of significance, but they're pretty old and they have bricks. Of course, they weren't building carports back then, but shed roofs are not an odd item in our alleys. So, and that's all I had to say. Any questions?
Questions on this side?
I do have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
The language in the ordinance about the wall, the painted wall, is this as specific as it gets? The masonry walls, which are currently painted, may be repainted in accordance with the definition of repair and general maintenance. That doesn't really provide for detail that only the painted portion of that wall. It just says any wall that's been painted can be repainted. So I didn't know if there's a more specific passage in the ordinance, or is that our interpretation?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
Is there anything more specific?
Yeah. Oh, I guess that's an open question. Okay.
It does say the painting of unpainted masonry walls is prohibited.
Oh, okay. So that's vague to me.
Which
but-
means, I suspect, that painted walls can be painted. And whether this is a painted wall or an unpainted wall is probably one of those glass half full, glass half empty things.
Okay.
But we'll get to that in discussion.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that does not conclude the testimony. Bill Hart.
Hi, my name is Bill Hart. I live at 3319 Indiana, and I'm here on behalf of the design team for the review team for the neighborhood's historic district.
And your testimony will be?
My testimony will be the truth.
Excellent.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Now, that only holds till midnight.
The committee obviously, well, first of all, the law states, the ordinance states, in no uncertain terms, that any masonry that's unpainted shall not be painted. That's not an open-ended sentence. And secondly, any garage, especially one, or garage port, especially one that's highly visible to the street, shall follow a model example. Had the developer in this case applied for a building permit, he certainly would have been aware of that. And this is a developer, a man who develops real estate. He's not a hapless first-time homeowner who bought a house with vinyl windows. So we respectfully request that the review board uphold the director's denial.
Fence and foundation.
Yes, of all of the infringements upon the ordinance.
Now, you heard the testimony from staff that had he applied for a permit for the foundation work, it would have been granted. Are you still opposed to it?
Sir. Okay, I will acquiesce on that one point at least, since it would be approved.
Okay. Questions for the neighborhood? Alderman?
Yeah, I mean, I still, so they tried to remove the paint, which made it even look worse. In a half-painted building, you would think that would look better than.
I'm not making a judgment call on aesthetics. I am interpreting what the ordinance says.
Well, so the ordinance is vague, from what I understand.
It's one sentence. It doesn't seem too vague to me.
It's one sentence, so the wall's painted. It's partially painted,
Well, a
but
little
it's
bit of it's painted, right?
Well, it looked like about half, but, you know, to me, like I said, to me it looked painted. I think it looks much better now.
Clearly, we will get to that in our discussion.
Obviously, that's
Thank
up to you to decide.
You will not have to carry that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners.
I have a question for The neighborhood association. Well, I didn't
Oh,
direct one to him.
I'm sorry.
Sure. Just a quick question. After you saw the presentation by the appellant, setting forth his plan for the adjacent lot, does that factor into the board's position or to your position?
We did not know that before we made our decision. The committee made its decision, so I'd have to stick with this committee's decision because I wasn't privy to this new information. I can't speak for the rest of the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
No further question.
Hi. Regarding the foundation wall, so that foundation wall, a lot of the big reason why the building was actually condemned was because the foundation was falling. We repaired it, and it's been done right. But I do want to state that the original foundation when I purchased the house was painted white. So I don't have pictures right here, but I do have original pictures that will show, and they're actually on Google. If you look at the front of the foundation, around the foundation, you can see it's been painted white. That part of that foundation, all of it's been painted white, and you can see that up on Google. And I've told CRO that I've always planned to build this house next door. I still plan to build this house next door. I've invested a tremendous amount of money in getting surveyors out there. I would have already broken ground, but like I said, we had to wait to get up to the land got surveyed and separated before we can start. Otherwise, I would have broken ground already. So, I apologize. I humbly apologize. I even tried to go to CRO when this all came up, and I tried to talk to everybody there and just say, listen, I did not mean to build this house. Again, please understand, I would not jeopardize several $100,000 on a project because of a wall and a garage. I mean, the inside of the house, I have entire permits, and I've always, the permit I took out 3 years ago, and the inside of the permit, I've always renewed it on time. A lot of times, things fall through the cracks and you forget about the permits. I've always renewed my permit. It's always been, the permit for that project's always been renewed. So throughout the entire time I did the project, I was on the impression that I had permit on this project. So it's not, please understand, when you see the words up there, no permit, it's not the case for this project. It's just for that garage. So thank you.
Be assured that nothing that we decide reflects on what we believe to be your motivation.
I'm sorry?
We will not be blaming you. We'll be simply looking at the ordinance.
Oh, yes, I understand.
Okay.
I understand. Thank you.
Ms. Gagan, you have anything you want to say?
Well, I'm sorry, can I have a question of staff? So you haven't reviewed the drawing for the new building that could potentially be built next door, right? Okay.
Okay, Commissioners, that concludes our testimony in this matter. I still think we have 4 issues in front of us. We may be able to deal with some of them easier than with others. Do I hear a motion about the foundation? It is.
I move that we overturn the staff's denial and allow the foundation as there was evidence it was previously painted.
Fair. That's
second.
That's foundation and paint.
Painted foundation, not painted wall.
Right, painted foundation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just the foundation, not the rest of the wall.
Foundation. Painted foundation. Commissioners, any comments on that? Okay, there's a motion on the floor. It is to overturn the staff denial for the painted foundation. I'm going to call a roll. Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Killeen, do you vote Commissioner Vines, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Alderman Vaccaro, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
That's 4 yeses. The staff's recommendation is overturned, and the appeal on that issue is upheld. Do I hear a motion regarding the fence?
For clarification, is this the fence that's in front of the building line fence, or is this?
This is the fence that could be a wall, and it could be a fence.
Okay.
Fence. Would you rather do the garage first?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I hear a motion regarding the garage? Port.
Okay.
I move that the Preservation Board overturn staff's denial on the carport.
I'll second that.
The motion on the floor,
Second.
and it's been seconded by Alderman Vaccaro and Commissioner Vines. Discussion? What are you thinking, Tony?
So, yeah, as Commissioner Colleen stated, and I pulled up on Geo St. Louis, there is a carport that is very similar, done by UIC at 2860 Indiana. So I see no reason why we wouldn't approve it.
Further discussion?
To me, I'm looking at this in the big picture. I see this entire agenda item, really. We're talking about a dilapidated building that, yes, there were some things that could have been, done proactively, and it is vague, though. Some of the language is vague. I think you have to look at this in the macro, and here we have a developer who is not only renovating an historic building in an historic neighborhood, but also building on a vacant lot adjacent, which really does compound the project's impact and footprint and investment in the city. And I really do think that as long as we're looking at these singularly, which I know that's what we have to do by the law, but it just seems like remiss to ignore the fact that there is a lot more at stake here than just these the consequences of this particular building. I'm looking at forward into the future and how this would impact his further investment on the lot next door, and I love to see projects that fill in the all too many gaps that we have in our urban streetscape. And in terms of urban design and function and form, to me, this rehab as proposed, or as he's been doing it, checks a lot of the boxes that I would look for a sound development. It's unfortunate that there was some either misunderstanding or, some regret on the developer's part for misunderstanding, but I just don't know that it's clear enough to kind of undo a lot of the work he's already done. Especially, well, I know, are we only talking about the garage right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, this can apply to that wall too, the painted wall.
Hey, I have 2 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
How does the neighborhood's own feelings weigh into this for you?
I mean, there again, I understand and I appreciate the very stringent historic district code. The only thing is that if some of these, objections might be rendered moot by the incoming development, on the next lot. I feel like it does a disservice to everyone here to just belabor it and dwell on it and possibly, call into question his ability to complete that second phase.
If I had a nickel for every promised new building that never happened, I'd have about 56 nickels.
True.
So,
Well, I mean, you're right, and I know that too.
Times 10.
yeah.
Right. I know that.
So, I
But,
mean, should this motion be conditional?
Oh, that's a good suggestion. Although I don't know, can we do that? Because since it's singularly,
We do it all the time.
okay. Yeah, that's a possibility, but I'd have to think about how that would be.
You did not make the motion, you
No, I
seconded the
didn't.
motion.
Yeah.
Commissioner Robinson made the motion, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
He may not want to do that.
So Commissioner Robinson, how would you feel about an addendum to the motion to overturn the CRO's denial on the condition that the proposed new construction on the adjacent lot moves forward?
As it relates to
We're-
carport?
We're discussing the carport.
Oh.
No, I think there's an example in the neighborhood of a carport that is built similarly and is viewable from the street, and so there's no reason that this one should not be approved.
Any further discussion on the garage motion,
On the carport?
carport motion?
No.
Okay. Commissioners, there's a motion on the floor that's been made and seconded. I'm going to call a roll. Alderman Vaccaro, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Vines, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
That is 3 yeses, 1 no. The appeal is upheld. Let's turn to the issue of fences. 2 in question. 1 might be a wall, 1 might not be. Do I hear a motion regarding the fences? You want to separate them?
Well, so the question is it a wall or is it a fence? Because I have different motions based on whether it's
Okay.
a wall.
Let's take up the fence wall first. Commissioner Robinson, have you got a motion?
I move that the Preservation Board uphold the staff denial as the work does not comply with the Benton Park Historic District standards.
Second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Is there discussion? Commissioner Robinson?
So I have no issues with horizontal wood fencing, as again, that was approved. However, the fence doesn't meet height requirements, as the city only allows fencing up to 6 foot tall. And it should be reduced in height.
Discussion? Commissioners, there's a motion on the floor regarding fence 1, the fence or wall. Commissioner Richardson, do you vote yes or no?
I don't, I'm going to pass on that one.
Commissioner Vines, do you vote yes or no?
I also pass.
Commissioner Vaccaro, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
And Commissioner Robinson, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
There are 2 passes, 2 yeses. To make it abundantly clear that this passes, the chair casts the vote yes. That's 3 yeses, 2 passes. And that appeal is denied. Now looking at the fence. Commissioner Robinson, a motion.
I thought that was the fence.
That's the wall fence.
Okay.
I am too.
What, excuse me, can I just ask?
Yeah.
So that was the
Integral part of the garage.
garage
Yes, we just.
that we already approved?
We approved the garage, not the fence.
No, actually, we approved the carport, because if that is in fact a wall,
Fair point.
then you have to look at
Carport
wall
now
differently
without a fence.
than you would a fence.
Okay.
Fence. Motion, Commissioner Richardson?
Which is why I was specific about carport.
So, now we see his hand.
Now I got no motion. I'm confused here now. A fence is different than a,
There's two fences.
okay, which one are we doing now?
We're doing the one that's actually just a fence,
The one out front?
the one out front.
I move that we uphold the director's denial, not approve the fence that's out front.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
I don't even think the applicant really discussed that fence, and it clearly violates the standards and should be taken down.
Okay, further discussion? Vaccaro, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Vines, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, yes or no?
Yes.
The appeal is denied. Votes of 4 to nothing. Commissioners, we now face the wall. And it seems to me that the issue here is whether this is a painted wall or an unpainted wall, or both.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That would be my
Sure.
motion.
Chairman, I move that we table this motion until the next meeting.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, there is no second. You have another motion?
I'll make a motion that we.
Hold on one second. Commissioner Robinson, you have a motion?
Another motion?
Yes.
Sure, I move that the Preservation Board uphold the staff denial as the work does not comply with the Benton Park Historic District standards.
Is there a second?
Can I ask, what is this? Which one is this now?
Painted wall.
The painted wall.
Oh, I thought we did that first.
We did not.
I would love to make a motion.
Okay, that motion fails for lack of a second. Commissioner Vines.
I move to overturn the director's denial of the painted wall because I believe the ordinance language is vague and ambiguous.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Have we discussed this ambiguity sufficiently? Or do we
No.
want to beat it?
I don't think it's ambiguous. It says unpainted masonry walls are prohibited, and it also says currently painted may be repainted, but if you took, that would be an absurd result to say that if there's a paint splatter on a wall, you can paint an entire elevation of a building. So I don't think it's ambiguous. I think it's clear that you cannot paint an unpainted wall.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with.
I hear you. Here's my thinking on this.
One quick second. Alderman?
Well, I'm going by the picture. I would say a very large portion, it's not a paint splatter, it goes all the way across, goes across the top. I know we approved the paint on the bottom. They tried to clean it, which we've gone through that once before, where I know that we've talked about trying to take that lettering off the, whatever that place was. I think they made an honest effort to take it off, and I think to tell them to unpaint that building is wrong. I think it looks better whether or not, you know, that's just my opinion. I feel the wall's mostly painted. I don't think there's any easy way to unpaint it, and I think trying to tell them to take that paint off that wall, it's gonna look horrible. Even if they can get it off the part over here, well, they've already tried to take it off. It looks terrible, which was in the pictures that were better up there, and I think to tell them to take that paint off the wall is gonna look horrible. And if I lived next to it, I'd prefer they have the whole thing painted than some half-painted looking thing.
But my general thinking is that, you know, just because it may not be the entire wall, the wall is painted, the wall in question, and the way the ordinance is written is like a currently painted wall. Well, the truth is that is a currently painted wall, even if not every portion of the wall is painted. So that could be interpreted a few different ways. But I believe Commissioner Richardson has maybe an alternate motion.
Current
or an
motion
addition.
is to. That motion has been made and seconded. Is the person who made that motion asking to withdraw it?
I am asking my fellow commissioner to enhance my motion.
I need you to withdraw yours.
Okay, I withdraw mine.
And I'll withdraw my second.
Okay.
Okay, I move that we overturn the staff denial with respect to the wall and allow it to remain painted, conditioned and subject to plans being presented to the CRO and approved by the CRO/Preservation Board if required for the new construction project on the adjacent created lot.
Solomon would applaud.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Everybody see what that motion was?
I'm confused by it, but I think I.
It says that the paint can stay up as long as they build the other house.
Is there a time frame on them building
They,
Nicholson?
And approval of the house and the pulling of permits within 8 months. There, that's what I did.
Well, then, so you
8
changed
months.
the motion, and we changed the motion and
he
a
he just
second?
finished, he just finished stating it.
Okay, I thought I had a second already.
Is there a second?
I double second.
Double second, okay. I didn't see that in
Do you
Robert's.
approve the amendment?
The amendment, yeah.
Okay, commissioners, there's a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded several times. Alderman Vaccaro, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Vines, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson, yes or no?
Yes.
And Commissioner Robinson, yes or no?
Yes.
That is 4 yeses. The motion is approved.
Can I ask for a clarification?
Yes.
So,
I'm not certain that we can give you one.
okay. There were 2 motions made regarding that carport, and they seem to conflict. In one motion, you said it looked like that other carport, and it was approved, and then in the next motion, you said, we got to take down the fence and make it lower, which is really the wall of the carport.
Well, if it's the wall, then I think we have to revisit that as a garage structure and not a carport, which might change the motion. Is it a wall or is it a fence?
Well, I guess I should let my client address that, because I did not design it.
Actually, this matter is concluded.
But it is there's a conflict there, because
We
no,
we do not believe so. We believe that we have allowed him to proceed with a carport, but not with that wall.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, we're going to take another 2-minute break real fast, just to catch our breaths. Thank you all for your patience. Session. We are still hearing appeals of denials. Hopefully not any as complicated as the one we just heard. I'm calling 1229 Victor next.
Bethany Moore of the Cultural Resources Office. I swear to tell the truth. I'd also like to read into the record Ordinance 57078, the Soulard Neighborhood Local Historic District Ordinance, Ordinance 64689, as amended by Ordinance 64925, which is the enabling ordinance, the PowerPoint, the agenda, and this presentation.
Thank you.
All right, this is 1229 Victor Street. It is an appeal of the director's denial to brick in a recess at the front wall. This is the building in question. It has gone through a lot of changes over the years, not through the current owners. Used to be a storefront, and now it is a residence. And here is its location on the corner of Victor and South 13th Street. So both elevations are visible from both streets. Here's the location of the proposed changes on the 13th Street facade. It would be right here. This is a recess that has been covered with pressed metal painted to look like brick. There's a detail shot you can see underneath there. It's been torn up a little bit so we can see that. And then here is the Victor Street facade. It's longer. This might be dead. But there's that one. So it goes in a strip across the buildings on both sides. And then the proposal is to brick in the recess in a herringbone pattern. And according to the standards, replacement materials for wrought or cast iron, which is what we believe was there, the cornice that is under here. Ooh, there we go. We believe was continued here and on the other side, as they are the same. They're the same width. So for that, according to the standards, for replacement materials for wrought and cast iron accessories, it can either be new or reused metal accessories based on a model example, or plastic or other molded or cast materials, which replicates the appearance of the original. In this case, the bricking in does not comply with the standards. The area is currently covered with the pressed metal brick, but it appears to have been the location of the turned metal cornice similar to the extant part over the entry. The proposal is to fill in the missing area with patterned brick, which would alter the historic appearance of the building and is contrary to the standards. The Cultural Resources Office has recommended that a simplified metal cornice be installed over the area. The preliminary findings in this is that the proposed alteration is clearly visible from both Victor and South 13th Street. The brick is not an appropriate replacement material for the missing metal detail, and the proposed bricked-in alteration would constitute a permanent alteration to the front facade of this historic building. The Cultural Resources Office is recommending that the Preservation Board uphold the director's denial, as the proposed alteration does not comply with the Soulard Neighborhood Local Historic District standards.
Questions on this side? Questions on this side?
Thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the appellant first, please.
My name is Stephen Victor, and I live at 1229 Victor Street, and I swear to tell the truth.
And
I'm Timothy Youngman. I live at 1229 Victor Street, and I also will tell the truth.
okay,
So,
wait, stop.
oh,
Mr. Victor,
Yes.
not listed as the appellant.
Well, I'm one of the owners of the home. I don't know why that's.
That was an error. That's an error.
Okay, let's correct the record.
To state that they are both the owners of the home. Timothy Youngman and
Stephen Victor.
Stephen Victor.
With a
I'm
PH.
sorry, proceed.
so this is our house. It was constructed as a corner store many years ago, or in 1891, and at some point it stopped being a store. We believe in the early 1900s. And the door that would have been the side door was removed, and a new front entryway was constructed, and then they put on that metal to look like brick. And we believe the intention was to change the house from what was a corner store to make it a fully residential building. And at the time, what we believe they were trying to do is essentially make it conform to other homes in the area and look like a house and not a corner store. So for that reason, essentially what we want to do is, instead of trying to recreate it as looking like a corner store, we'd rather move forward and have it look more like a house. So, why don't we go ahead and move forward?
I won't belabor this, but I've done a lot of historical research on the house. It was built in 1891, and the builder
Is this yours?
Yes, yes. It's a kind of a lengthy document. It's summarized on the first 2 pages, and it's summarized further there on the slide.
I'm submitting it for the record.
Oh, thank you. So, as I was saying, the builder marketed it as a commercial space on the first floor with residents above. However, I cannot find a record of it being used commercially after 1921. So it was exclusively residential. And at some point, we don't know when, as Tim just mentioned, someone altered the corner entrance, removed, there might have been columns, I don't know, but certainly removed the door. And there were some side pieces that, as Bethany has described, that might have been a continuation of that cornice or a sign perhaps. We don't know, and we don't know when that happened. So our argument is, while we don't deny that someone violated this ordinance, we don't know when that occurred, and we don't know who did it, and it wasn't us. We bought the house in 2016 in this condition. So our request of the board is that we be allowed to further minimize the appearance of being a corner store by replacing the unsightly metal with brick.
Questions on this side?
So what's under the metal?
There are some holes and there's some wood where we have some concerns about exposure to the elements. Our contractors here, I don't know what might have been attached there, but it's basically, there's a close-up somewhere.
It's basically an open area.
There's some parts are wood, parts are brick. We don't know what could have been there.
This side? Any questions this side?
Sure. Seems to me like it'd be cheaper to stick some metal back on there, but I'm just curious, what's it gonna cost to put brick, which I think will look nice, that's just my opinion, but.
The brick will be about $4,300. If we tried to replicate the storefront or whatever might have been there, that would be ridiculously expensive, probably
Right.
$10,000 or more. We've looked at,
But really cool.
really cool, perhaps, yeah, but it would also sort of beg the issue of reconstructing the door that was there, in my opinion. Yeah.
And the other thing is, the cornice is really in beautiful shape, and it's a really pretty architectural detail of the house. And we think that the brick would actually complement the ornate and beautiful cornice that is still in place much better than a reproduction metal all the way across. We honestly think that it would look better on the house in the long term and be a better complement to the cornice that's there.
So why the herringbone pattern?
I don't know. We have a picture. It picks up, there's that side door. Well, I don't think we have a clue. There's a pattern in there, triangular pieces of wood, and it would pick up that. That's the only reason. And we just personally like the appearance of herringbone.
But we want, if
If there's a solution that might, a brick solution that might look more in keeping than herringbone, we'd be open to that.
in other words, we'd like to do brick, and if you want, let us do herringbone. We're happy to just
We'll do enough.
stick with brick.
I'm not going to argue with anybody holding a brick. Just against my religion.
Well, we were supposed to bring a sample.
This is sort of period brick, a similar era of the construction of the house. So.
Further questions on this side?
No.
Have you submitted everything you want?
Yes, we
Okay.
have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, that concludes, wait a minute, let's see if it does. It does conclude the testimony that we have in this matter.
Mr. Chairman, did we receive anything from the alderman or the neighborhood on that matter?
Did we? We did not. You have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we overturn the director's denial, allow the alterations, but in a brick pattern as approved by the Cultural Resources Office as being most.
Second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. There's a motion on the floor that has been made and seconded. Alderman Vaccaro, do you vote yes or no?
Yes.
That, by the way, is your sixth yes vote today.
I know.
If you're keeping tally. Commissioner Vines? Yes or no?
Yes.
It's your fifth yes vote today.
Oh, my God. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Killeen, yes or no?
No.
Commissioner Richardson, yes or no?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, yes or no?
No.
That is 3 yeses, 2 nos. The motion is upheld. Commissioners, we have a special agenda item. It's a landmark designation. Commissioner Richardson, have you got a motion regarding it?
I move that we. Second. I move that we forward on to the SHPO's office the Oscar Waring Home nomination. Did I get that right? Nope, it's not going to SHPO's office?
Trudell, this is a local landmark.
That we move that we forward it on to the Board of Aldermen for landmark designation.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners, has anybody read the minutes for August 26, 2019?
I did, they sent them to us.
Did you say yes, you did?
Yeah, they sent them to us.
Do you have a motion regarding them?
And I'll make a motion, we approve them as sent or submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of August 26, 2019 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. The minutes are approved. Director's report?
Second the motion for the,
Make the computer work.
Randy Vine seconded the motion for the Waring House, correct?
Yes.
okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. I should have said that.
There it is. Some other things populated that corner in the meantime. Okay, so let's see. We'll go to slideshow. Begin. All right. This is Director's report for September 23rd. The first thing I'm going to do is talk about 3 items that were removed from the agenda and explain why from the preliminary agenda. The first item was a proposed new construction for a 2-story single-family house at 1023 Dolman. So that's on Dolman Street at the far northern end of Dolman in Lafayette Square. You can see the vacant lot on the right side of the slide there. This one, we did not get sufficient plans to be able to bring that one forward tonight, so that will probably be saved for a later date. The next item is the same story again. This is 2201 to 45 Hickory Street. For those who've been on the board for a while, if you're looking at this picture, immediately kind of to the right of this picture is the Praxair site. So this is at the top of the hill, so to speak. There is a development agreement in place between the owner of the site, who's William Odell, and Jeff Winserling, to build 14 attached and detached homes across here. Generally, the staff has found those favorable plans, but we just don't have enough detail on those yet to bring it to the board. I anticipate that coming to the board next month for review. Next item was an item like the last one that was approved, the Oscar Waring House. This was for a city landmark designation for the Galilee Missionary Baptist Church at Del Mar and Pendleton in the Central West End neighborhood. Unfortunately, it's a great Richardsonian Romanesque building. The applicant got all the way through approval from BPS and the Planning Commission and decided at the last sort of moment to abandon their application, which I've encouraged them that we would welcome them back anytime because it's a great structure, but they've chosen for now to not seek landmark status. And I'd like to conclude with 3 projects with updates on those projects that the board has previously seen. I'm sure everyone's probably driven by this a million times in the last few months, but this is the site of the former Southwest, now BMO Harris Bank at Kings Highway and Southwest Avenue. What you see here on the top is an image of what was proposed to the Preservation Board in August of 2016. And on the bottom, what was approved by the board in 2016. The board rejected the plan on the top, which included rehab of the BMO Harris building here, rehab of this building here for the Tower Grove Neighborhood CDC. It was also going to include demolition of 2 contributing buildings to the Reber Place National Register District at that location, and demolition of a building that was here, of a building from the 1970s. The board rejected that proposal in favor of a later proposal in November that kept the facade of this building and reused it for the Walgreens, kept the facade of this building and reused it as a screen for the parking, and proposed the rehab of the BMO Harris building and the building for the Tower Grove Neighborhood CDC. That project is now almost entirely complete. So I'd just like to go through some slides. I don't have before slides of the actual buildings, but this is the BMO Harris Bank. For those who remember this property, this was all painted a kind of dull yellow color. Once the owners got into it, they appealed to the staff to be able, or the director, I probably should say more accurately, to be able to paint this facade because some of the brick colors were uneven. I supported that, and I think even though I didn't really like painting it a brick red color really brings out the original appearance much more than the old yellow paint was as well. And then this is the rest of that streetscape for the Walgreens. So here we have the screen for the parking. Here we have the facade from that auto-related business that was retained, and the Walgreens was built behind it. This is an addition to hide, just a wall really to hide some of the service docks and their garbage facility, etc. Here are some close-ups. I think some of these elements really showed up very nicely. You can see the terracotta on the wall of this part actually is part of the BMO Harris Bank, but this extends across to cover the parking. But when they rehabbed it, they really did a nice job of cleaning up that terracotta on that facade. Additionally, once they got the paint off, the yellow paint off, they have these green glazed brick piers that have been retained and exposed, which I think add a lot of character to the building. Now for some of the unhappy parts. Well, also I would also point out the quality of the terracotta detail here that's been retained has been, I think, pretty remarkable. Something that happened almost immediately after this was approved was the neighborhood organization who was so involved in this project and the developer agreed on something that I will say I didn't particularly like, which was that the entrance should be moved from the north end of the building at Kings Highway to the center of the north facade along the parking lot. That facilitated having shelving behind these windows. So most of those windows are opaque. I did get them to agree to put windows between the center pier terracotta, that those would be clear glass to see into the storefront. So I think that was unfortunate. The other thing that was unfortunate was the second story, long ago, the windows up here were in with concrete masonry units. If I had known that, the final approval for those windows would have been for a much darker glass, so you don't see the kind of the lines of the masonry through there, although I guess it does make obvious that the history of the building was these were once open windows and then they were closed in, and now that's clear for everyone to see. Lemons out of lemonade, I guess.
Yeah.
And finally, the Tower Grove CDC occupies the building at the end that's now being reused. I know that was a project that went back to the board multiple times. I think at the end of the day, what we got, largely because the citizens rose up and said they didn't like the first proposal the board saw, was a much better product, which I think says something about what happens when the citizens get engaged in what we do here. And often we get a better product because of their nudging. That's a technical term. A couple of other projects.
Like fenestration.
Exactly. Well, fenestration's kind of pedestrian, really, but nudge is a real term. So, so don't bait me, Richard. It's not good. It's not good TV. So here we have 1926 Utah Street. This came to the board as a National Register nomination for auto-related businesses. This was early in my tenure here, and you looked at the building on the right, or on the left rather, and it's just kind of shabby, but the rehab of this building has been really remarkable. I hope the pictures make that clear. It's just they've done a wonderful job with the reuse of the building. They've put a little restaurant there. They've done some wonderful landscaping over here, and it just shows fantastically. And
The food's really good.
oh, and a food recommendation. And finally, Mike, I think you should be very familiar with this project. This was one of yours, was it not?
Yes, sir.
So this is located at 3012 Russell. This is basically on the lot that's located where Hawthorne and Longfellow come together with Russell in the Compton Hill neighborhood. I think this design turned out really well. It really complements the street there. It fits nicely in the context of Compton Hill. And I think that's going to be a great complement to the neighborhood as things go forward. And that concludes the director's report. Yes, Mr.
So I sent you an email that we were sued by somebody that was in Benton Park, right? Was that what that was?
You did.
So can you just brief us on that?
I guess my question, the first thing I'll do is ask our legal counsel, should we be going into closed session for this, or can we talk about this out in public?
Yeah, probably you would want to close, and that wasn't noticed on the agenda, but I also think that no one here is here that's handling that, so it's probably moot. Maybe it should be the next session.
That's fine.
So, I'm sorry, Barb, what was your conclusion?
Said no.
No, we shouldn't close, okay.
Said no, don't discuss it.
Oh, she said don't discuss it.
Yeah. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioners, we stand adjourned. Thank you.